Now Huples cat having a bit of hair day. Stay tuned, we're going to find out the truth about the UAPs.
Well, I think obviously there is some sort of pattern in there. The fact that we are seeing this in a significant degree over the past week.
Indeed, young Justin, indeed. A pattern. But what pattern? What type of pattern? And what does it mean? Welcome to me speculating on UAPs, or UFOs as they used to be called. The trendy current terminology is UAP, which stands for Unidentified Aerial Phenomena, as opposed to the old term which was UFO. UFO of course stood for Unidentified Flying Object, so UAP means it may not be an object, it may be like a wavelength or a mysterious glowing ball of electricity. So we're broadening the definition away from objects. By the way, UFO is an absolutely wonderful series from England in the 60s or 70s, absolutely fascinating. I think it's totally now available on Netflix or Prime. Ed Straker, go watch it. So far, America has decommissioned, or as normal people put it, blown out of the sky, a total of 4 flying objects. On February 1st, it decommissioned an object that was quite clearly a Chinese weather balloon. The Americans keep saying it's a Chinese spy balloon. For me, it could be both, but the truth is actually a bit more greyer than the Americans are letting on. The only reason it's been designated as a spy balloon is because America keeps telling everybody it's a spy balloon. To this date, on February 15th, we literally know nothing about the spy weather balloon. I actually like to think it's both. We do know today, the latest breaking news today is there's 2,000 pounds of electronics on it. Of course there is. I wonder how big the solar panels were. That doesn't make it a spy balloon, does it? Even parts of the American government now seem unsure whether it was a spy balloon, and they're actually now saying that it was actually blown off course and was never intended to go into American territory.
We now know pretty well what the track of this balloon was. It started in China, using prevailing winds, but also with some capacity to manoeuvre itself. It came close to the Aleutian Islands, over Alaska, through Canada, into the United States, and then it hovered. It hovered over the missile fields, the ICBM missile fields in Montana, where the Americans keep their Minuteman III strategic nuclear missiles. And we know also that this balloon has since manoeuvred, so it can move itself both up and down to catch different air currents and left and right. So it's not completely random.
Let's get into something a little bit more speculative and interesting. The other 3 objects that the Americans blew out of the sky, they're not phenomena, they're not UAP, these are in fact UFOs. They are objects that have been hit by missiles, mostly AIM-9 Sidewinders, and blown out of the sky. First one was destroyed over Alaska, second one over Yukon, which is a territory of northern Canada, and the third one was destroyed over Michigan, but very close to the Ontario border, and came down just off the coast of Manitoulin Island. But is this an invasion? Is the Daily Star right? The Daily Star is not a credible source. Even our Prime Minister is actually searching for the debris. Good on him to take time off to go up there and have a look.
The conditions are brutal, but the hunt for debris in the Yukon continues. Military planes from across the country are joining the search, an urgent push for answers at a time when little is known.
Obviously, there is some sort of pattern in there. The fact that we are seeing this in a significant degree over the past week is a cause for interest.
I'm interested. What do we know about this? They float, they move without visible means of propulsion, they're unmanned, which means they've reclaimed the wreckage and checked to make sure there's nobody inside them. They were operating at 20 to 40,000 feet. And there's other stuff that's really interesting, which we'll get into in a bit.
All 3 of the unidentified flying objects shot down since Friday have similarities. They all seem to float and had no known propulsion system. The objects were unmanned, and they were located at altitudes that posed a danger to civil aviation. That's much lower than the Chinese spy balloon. Since its discovery, NORAD has intensified how it monitors radar, which may partially explain the sudden surge in sightings.
Excuse me?
One of the reasons that we think we're seeing more is because we're looking for more.
Yes, you altered the filters on the NORAD radar system, but am I seriously believe that until you altered them this week, you weren't picking up objects the size of strategic bombers? And you weren't picking up objects the size of cruise missiles? Oh, and which planet would we believe that they're actually altering the sensitivity of radar for NORAD and telling everybody they're doing it?
Fighter jets were scrambled to shoot down all 3 objects. The first in Alaska on Friday, landing on dangerous ice. An object was then taken down over the Yukon on Saturday. The search area near Dawson City covers some 3,000 square kilometers.
Alaska, Yukon, far north, I get it, hard to find. However, they have accurate military GPS and accurate wind direction at the time of the downing. We're not looking at thousands upon thousands of square meters to find these things. Again, military GPS and wind speed are very known, and it's very easy to calculate where it came down. In fact, one would assume that the military planes probably watched it come down.
All these objects are surprising even to the experts.
There's a big problem with this one. This is not a plane nor a balloon. But before we get into that,
well, I have to say that from my time as deputy commander of NORAD, I had no indication while I was down there that anything like this was floating over continental North America.
Really? No indication? The United States Navy released not one, not two, but 3 UAP videos in 2017, I believe, from earlier on. Absolute clear proof of objects moving against normal physics that had been intercepted very briefly, that would transition from air into sea without crashing. All a bunch of weird stuff, but these 3 videos are absolutely proven not to be faked by the US Navy and can't be explained by human science. They currently remain unexplained, as do the 3 UAPs that were downed this week.
Nickel 6-1 Tango Project over.
Oh, got it! Woohoo!
Roger, there's troubleshooting.
Did you box moving target?
No, I took an auto track.
Oh, okay.
Oh my gosh, dude.
Wow, look at it fly!
This is very surprising. What's even more surprising, it's just not possible for a balloon to move that way and that fast. It's also not possible for a private or a commercial airline or plane or drone to stay aloft that long without refueling. I would also argue it would be impossible for a balloon or a plane to remain that aloft over those areas for that long and be invisible to radar.
First detected over southern Alberta before it was picked up over Montana on Saturday night. By the time it was shot down over Lake Huron on Sunday, it had crossed over at least one sensitive U.S. military site.
The distance between Le Havre, Montana and the crash site just outside of Manitoulin Island is about 3,000 kilometres, which to you Yanks is about 1,864 miles. The balloon was seen over Le Havre about 23 hours before it was intercepted over Michigan and crashed into Ontario. This is an average speed of 130 kilometers an hour or 81 miles per hour. It doesn't dovetail with wind direction over that period of time. So if it's a balloon, it has to travel at 20,000 feet from Le Havre, Montana to just over Michigan close to the Ontario border of Lake Huron in 23 hours. Well, this is a wind map from midnight on February 12th to midnight on February 13th of 2013. Now it is the ground wind map, which is an indication of direction higher up, but not exactly. But 20,000 feet is not that high. And I would argue, looking at the weather systems that were prevailing on the 12th of February, there is no way it went from Le Havre across to Huron by wind. We have to bear in mind as well that the size of these cylindrical objects with no visible wing or engine were actually the size of a small car. So the amount of lift that you can put in there using hydrogen or helium is quite low, and for them to maintain at 20,000 feet would be very, very difficult, and to travel that distance pretty much impossible. Hold on.
As speculation about their origins runs rampant, there's one theory intelligence leaders are trying to shut down.
I don't think the American people need to worry about aliens with respect to these craft, period. I don't think there's any...
Okay, Katie, we don't have to worry about aliens, but what more are you hearing from your sources?
But there is no indication of aliens or extraterrestrial activity with these recent takedowns. Again, there is no indication of aliens or terrestrial activity with these recent takedowns. Wanted to make sure that the American people knew that, all of you knew that, and it was important for us to say that from here because we've been hearing a lot about it. I'm not...
Will you tell us?
I'm just, I loved E.T., the movie, but I'm just going to leave it there.
So if it's not aliens and it's not balloon, what on earth could it possibly be? A plane or a drone that was in the air for at least 23 hours, actually longer because it was first spotted on radar over Alberta and moved down into Montana, where it disappeared and then reappeared over Michigan. In the air a long time, at least 24 hours, probably longer. No commercial aeroplane can stay in the air that long without refueling or landing. The record is under 21 hours. No private plane can even come close to that length of time in the air. I know there are experimental aircraft. I know you can retrofit jumbo jets and have them go completely around the globe. The fact here is it was also invisible to radar and travelling at a speed that, if it had wings, which it did not, would mean it would fall out of the sky like a brick. It would definitely be below its stalling speed.
truly, they don't know where these things are from. I asked whether the Canadian government has plans to summon an ambassador for a stern talking to, just like they did pretty quickly after the Chinese spy balloon discovery. And I was told there are no plans for summoning, at least at this time. So it's another sign they don't know if it's a country behind this or what exactly is going on. Until they can get their hands on the debris, they're going to be limited in what they can learn, and that's going to take some time given the search conditions.
Very true. We need to look at the debris sooner rather than later. People are already suspecting American government Biden are hiding the debris for various reasons, and that leads to speculation, and speculation is not healthy.
And now bipartisan calls urging President Biden to share more details about this mysterious objects. The U.S. Joint Chiefs Chairman speaking in Brussels, describing the steps taken by U.S. fighter jets to shoot down those objects. Meanwhile, the Biden administration briefing senators behind closed doors today.
Americans are worried, and they have a right to know why President Biden directed the actions that he did over the last week.
A lot of information presented to us this morning that could be told to the American people without any harm to sources or method.
The search is still underway to recover debris from those objects downed in remote locations in Alaska, Canada's Yukon Territory, and Lake Huron.
Hold on here, as a proud Canadian living in Ontario, Lake Huron, Tobermory, Manitoulin Island is not very remote. There's numerous bases around the area that have military capacity. But let's get back to what is actually known about these UAPs. Seen over Alberta disappears, seen over Montana by Le Havre, F-15 Eagles from Portland are scrambled to intercept, part of the North American command structure. They go up, they can see it on radar, but they can't see it. There you go, it's disappeared. It's broken. It's an anomaly.
That's right, Lawrence. Just seconds ago when we got off air, NORAD has released a statement about that FAA airspace closure that was just lifted over Montana. Why that airspace was closed, I'm just going to read it. Quote, NORAD detected a radar anomaly and sent fighter aircraft to investigate. Those aircraft did not identify any object to correlate to the radar hits. NORAD will continue to monitor the situation. So that sounds in layman's terms, Lawrence, like a false alarm. So they thought they had detected something, but it turns out after they scrambled fighter aircraft out of Portland, those would be F-15 Eagles, U.S. Air Reserve. They sent that over Montana and they did not see anything. 23
hours later, we're told with confidence it's the same sighting, and this time they've shot it down. So it disappeared off radar, we're to believe, and out of visual range, we're to believe, and then it reappears and they destroy it. But it's the same object. I don't know if that's true. If it is, it definitely wasn't a balloon or a plane. Now, I've noticed on comments on this, there's a lot of misconceptions going on. There were two sightings over Montana. The first was the actual weather or a spy balloon from China. Quite clearly, no argument what that was. Whether it was a spy or a weather balloon, that's the argument. But it was a mega big balloon. It was over Billings, Montana on the first. Over a week later, a very small car-sized on radar is seen over Le Havre, Montana. That's a UAP. Two separate things.
We have no further details about the object at this time, other than it appears to be a small cylindrical object and smaller than the one that was downed off the coast of North Carolina.
So what were these UAPs? Everybody seems very confident the Chinese weather balloon was a spy balloon, and everybody seems very confident that these other three were not alien.
Interesting. This is kind of unusual that these pilots saw different things, and that is sort of, I guess, adding to the mystery of all this.
Yeah, not even the pilots apparently were really able to identify what they saw. And just to take you back for a sec, on Thursday, the U.S. defense officials sent F-35 fighter jets up to try to figure out what this object was that was flying around near Alaska. Those pilots, we have learned, have given very conflicting accounts of what they actually experienced, with some pilots saying that the object interfered with the plane's sensors, other pilots saying that they didn't really experience that, other pilots saying that when they looked at the object, they could identify no identifiable propulsion system, and they did not know how it was actually staying in the air, cruising at that altitude of about 40,000 feet. So this has all added to the Pentagon's wariness of describing in more detail what this object actually is until they can get more information through the debris that they are recovering right now.
Please answer in the comments. Don't bother to tell me it's a 5G or a pandemic dispersal system or any other guff about pole reversal that people are buying these days. But if you actually have a coherent theory, put it down there. Let's have a look at it. Let everybody else have a look at it. Because frankly, nobody knows what these three UAPs were or why they were there or what they were doing. All we know is America have blown 3 of them out of the sky. Either North American air defence is grossly incompetent and not worth the billions to trillions we're spending on it, or these UAPs are doing stuff that no human-made balloon, drone or plane is quite capable of doing at the moment. I await information. Nothing is off the table until we know what it is. Nothing. And that includes aliens, American government. Thanks for watching, have a great day, and remember...
The classification of this briefing is secret.
Get it, Wolfie?
Are you coming?
Hold on, I'm videoing Wolfie trying to get his treats. No, staring at me for them isn't how to do it. Do it properly. This has been the 2023 Hungry Wolfie Terrier production. So the current hip trendy world, the current trendy terminology, the current term, blah,